Hey everyone, I'm Nicole,
And I'm Gabrielle.
and we are the hosts of the Spiritual Sisters podcast.
Join us every week as we discuss all the spiritual topics like astrology, mediumship, psychic insights, and so much more.
We are often joined by others we have met along our spiritual journey who are well versed in many of these areas.
Get ready for enlightening discussions and interviews and personal experiences that we hope will expand your mind and get you thinking outside of the box.
Whether you're a seasoned spiritual seeker or just beginning your spiritual journey, there's something here for everyone.
Check us out every Tuesday wherever you get your podcasts. See you then.
Bye!
Welcome back, beautiful souls, to the Soul Ecosystem Podcast. I am your host, Anna Rising, and on this podcast we discuss all things soul contracts. I am a professional soul contract reader, and I work with a modality that combines Jewish mysticism, tarology, astrology, and numerology to calculate why you incarnated into this lifetime. Now, this episode is going to be coming out on Halloween, so I knew I needed to set you guys up with a good spooky soul contract, or at least the soul contract of somebody that is known for being spooky. And I initially actually looked into Edgar Allan Poe, and there's quite a bit to look in there, to look in his soul contract, but I ultimately decided to go with Mary Shelley's soul contract. Mary Shelley is known for being the author of Frankenstein, and this was during a time when women weren't really accepted as writers or accepted as anything other than homemakers. But it makes sense why Mary Shelley turned out the way she did. And I cannot wait to dive into that soul contract with you guys and give you a sneak peek into Mary Shelley's world, and to use her soul contract to explain what made her so unique, what made her stand out so much that she is still talked about to this day, some 300 years later. Mary Wollstonecraft Shelley was born August 30th, 1797 in London, England. And she was an English novelist best known as being the author of Frankenstein or the modern Prometheus. She is widely credited as one of the earliest creators of science fiction. And you guys might not know this about me, but I absolutely adore science fiction. I love sci-fi stuff. I have it on my bucket list to go to a Comic-Con. But back to Mary. She was the daughter of two influential thinkers, Mary Wollstonecraft, who is her mother and an early advocate for women's rights, and the author of A Vindication of the Rights of Woman, and William Godwin, who is a political philosopher and writer, and her father. Her mother died shortly after her birth, actually 11 days after Mary was born, and Mary was raised by her father and stepmother. She received a very unique and unconventional education for a girl of her time, and she grew up surrounded by writers, philosophers, and political intellectuals who often visited her family home. At the age of 16, Mary began a relationship with the poet Percy Shelley. I am so sorry if I'm not pronouncing that right, who was married at that time. They both left England and traveled through Europe together. After Percy's first wife died, Mary and Percy married in 1816. Their life together was marked by financial difficulties, frequent travel, and the deaths of several of their children. In 1816, that same year that they got married, while staying near Lake Geneva with Percy Shelley, Lord Byron, and other writers, the writer group agreed to each write a ghost story. During this time, Mary developed the idea for what would become Frankenstein, which she completed and published anonymously 2 years later in 1818. A revised edition was published in 1831, which included her name, and it is the most commonly used, commonly read version today. After Percy Shelley's death in 1822, Mary supported herself and her surviving son by writing and editing. She worked to preserve Percy's literary reputation editing and promoting his poetry, and she died at the age of 53 from what is believed to have been a brain tumor. So that was a fast snippet about her life. And as soon as I read that Mary married Percy after the death of his first wife, I'm like, okay, that's suspicious. That is suspicious circumstances if I have ever heard any. So I wanted to clarify that. I wanted to look into that because the year that Mary and Percy got married was the same year that Percy's first wife, Harriet, died by suicide. Coincidence? I don't know. Because apparently a lot happened in 1816. Mary's half-sister, so this is after her father remarried and she had a stepmother who she wasn't close to. Their relationship was really strained and tense. Her father had more children, and she had a half-sister named Fanny, who also died by suicide and also died in 1816. It's not difficult to make the connection between all of these tragedies that Mary experienced and why the majority of her work, the majority of her writing is centered around life and death, grief, responsibility, and abandonment. Now, here's another spooky fact. Percy Shelley actually passed away in 1822 from a sailing accident. He drowned, and his body was cremated, and according to multiple historical accounts, his heart did not burn. Now, they say it was likely due to a calcification issue because of illness, but his heart did not burn, and Mary kept the preserved heart wrapped in silk for the rest of her life. This is an extremely well-documented detail that is very well known about Mary Shelley, and that is about as spooky as it gets, guys. Now, Percy Shelley was actually 5 years older than Mary, so let's do the math. They met when she was 15. They got married officially when she was 19. So he was 20 when they met and 24 when they got married. Her husband was 29 years old when he had the sailing accident and passed away. So they must have been married for 5 years, only 5 years. So if Percy was 20 when he met Mary, that means that he was already married for a year, because he was married to his first wife from 1811 to 1816 when she died by suicide. I wonder why. And his marriage to his first wife was also 5 years. So he was married to Mary for 5 years, and he was married to Harriet for 5 years until she took her life, quote unquote. I feel like the jury is out on that one, because I feel like it would be very easy during that time to stage a suicide and be like, oh no, my wife was so depressed, she committed suicide, and oh, look at that, I can marry the love of my life now. So yes, suspicious circumstances. There was certainly a motivation here, but I don't know, should I look into Percy's soul contract too to see what Percy was up to? Because that would be interesting. I feel like I need to. Because this feels like a very tragic love triangle. This feels like a little murder mystery party we're going to have here today, which is perfect because it's Halloween. All right. So I'm really seeing the underlying themes, like the connection between Mary and Percy's soul contract here, because she has a few programs that made me question why she had them, but now putting two and two together, Percy has the same ones. So I'm going to tell you what that means. They both have a program called Hiding the Truth. And the numerology that's coming out of this program is 9817. And this is very interesting because when this program is operating from alignment, this is somebody that kind of keeps things close to their chest. They are not one to be loud or showy or like trying to grab attention and show other people what they have. They like to keep things close to their chest. They may live very simply, even if they have a lot of money, but when the misalignment kicks in, there's this tendency to not give the full extent of the story, not paint the full picture for people. And there's a little bit of secretism, is that a word, going on because they're trying to hide the actual state of things. And the actual state of things is much more worse off than what is being promoted, what is being perceived. This program also kind of stems from a lack of authenticity with themselves, a lack of self-reflection and ability to be honest with themselves about what they want, about their feelings, about their emotions, and what they want to get out of life. And this program is something I come across a lot in the soul contracts of politicians. So whenever I see that, I'm like, okay, that makes sense. They're politicians. They're hiding things. They like to make things seem like they're better off than they are. They like to pretend like everything is taken care of and everything's not burning to the ground. So the problem with individuals that have the hiding the truth program is that there are always going to be conflicts that arise because of this secrecy, because of them being so closed off. This kind of person literally withdraws into themselves and isolates themselves from the rest of the world. So either they hide as much information, as much details as possible, or exaggerate things and kind of do a little cover story about what transpired, hint, 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 and kind of lead people into a different direction for them not to pick up on their trail. For people with the Hiding the Truth program, it is very important to find somebody that they can be honest with. It is very important to find somebody that they can trust, because a lot of the wounds that are arising here in this program is that they feel they cannot trust anyone. They feel like they are completely alone in this world, and they feel like they need to be shady in order to survive. So as soon as I saw that program, I'm like, okay, I feel like there's a little bit more to his first wife's suicide than we were originally led on. Now, along with Hiding the Truth, Percy also has a silence program. And if you guys can remember, Percy was also a very good writer. He was a poet, and his personality is that of a very calm and rational person. He's able to maintain balance with his emotions, and he also has the gift of speech. He is able to articulate himself very well. He also has a very strong will and a lot of confidence. People with the silence program will usually not talk a lot about their personal life. They have a habit of keeping it to themselves, not even like to complain about their wife at home or whatever. They're also very good listeners. They're able to offer a crying shoulder, a listening ear without judging, and are able to give great advice. Now, along with this gift of speech, when it is operating out of misalignment, the person with the silence program is not able to open up to other people. They find it very difficult to express themselves, and they may start to express themselves less and less, to the point of where they don't want to speak out because they're afraid that they're going to be misunderstood. They're afraid that the things they can say can be misconstrued, misinterpreted, if it's too ambiguous. And even if the person is not happy about something, they would rather stay silent and say that everything is fine. And this makes for it to be very difficult to interact with the outside world. And this is likely why he struggled financially, why he struggled with his work, because there was this unwillingness to get out of his comfort zone, because he learned and internalized that he needs to be silent. There's also a program of attachment, really strong attachment to people and to relationships and things in this person's life. So Percy seems to have had a very unhealthy attachment either to his job, to relationships. I wonder if the reason his incarnation got cut so short is because of how misaligned he was. Because by the sounds of his soul contract, he seems to have really clammed up and withdrawn into himself. It almost gives me, you know what this gives me, the vibe this gives me? Precious from Lord of the Rings, that was like really obsessed with the ring. This is the vibe that I'm getting, like very hermited and very almost obsessive with one thing. Gollum, not Precious. He would always say my Precious, but his name was Gollum. Sorry. So yeah, this gives me Gollum energy. I feel like his passing was very destined. It was a destined thing for Mary Shelley because I feel like she wouldn't have been able to go as far as she did if her husband was still alive. Maybe the grief of that also aided her in her work. But I'm primarily saying that because it feels like he was a little bit toxic in the sense that based on his programs, there was a propensity to demand change of others and kind of be hyper controlling, but do very little work on themselves. He feels like he was a cap on her energy, like he kept her bottled up because of his demands of her. So it feels like there was a very unhealthy attachment there. Sorry, Mary Shelley, correct me if I'm wrong. One other program that I want to know in Percy's chart before we get into Mary Shelley's chart, which is the reason for this episode. Sorry, I just thought it was so interesting to look into his chart because I knew I was going to find some shady stuff. So Percy also has the public disgrace program, which is synonymous with shame. This is a program centered around shame, and it came true in this incarnation because Mary Shelley marrying Percy damaged her relationship with her father. It put a significant strain on that relationship because they did not approve, and it's probably because his wife literally just died, but she went ahead with it anyway, and she married him. And it was quite scandalous. It was very scandalous at the time, which explains why we have a shame program in Percy's soul contract. Funnily enough, if we look into Percy's past life karma, his karmic debt is one of attempting to control and manipulate. He got in trouble in a past life for attempting to keep people and various life situations under control, and he was supposed to learn to stop doing that because if he did it again in this incarnation, what would end up happening is that everything would seem to fall out of hand. This type of karmic debt is especially difficult for immediate, close loved ones and relatives to deal with this kind of person because he is typically a tyrant. He likes to control things, no matter how big or how small. I wonder if the reason that Mary Shelley kind of took over promoting his work and publishing his work and making sure his legacy didn't die was because while he was living, that's what he was trying to do. He was trying to stay on top of her. He was trying to one-up her with his work. And after his passing, she kind of dedicated the rest of her life to essentially do the things that promoted him instead of her. The more I read about this guy, the more I do not like him. I was very excited about this love triangle, even though it was like a tragic love triangle. I'm like, okay, surely he couldn't have murdered his wife. But I don't like the looks of his chart, guys. His approach to life is to demonstrate his power and behave arrogantly. Here are some of the things that could have happened in his incarnation that was manifesting as a result of this approach. Being disrespectful, constantly pointing out the faults of others, criticizing them, arrogance, superiority, tyrannical tendencies, irresponsibility, fear of making decisions and getting out of your comfort zone, inaction, self-pity, victimhood, hyper-control, and imposing his will and opinion on others. All right. I find that very interesting. I find that very interesting for Mary Shelley, considering how she grew up, considering who her mom is. It kind of feels like the patriarchy was trying to really dilute her energy, dilute her work and what she brings to the table. So I'm done with that guy. I don't like him. It feels like this was a very, oh my goodness, what is it called when you have like an attachment to somebody that's very unhealthy, but you're bonded because, I don't know, you were like 15 when you met him? Now that we're done with that guy, let's take a look at Mary Shelley's contract, because I'm starting to feel like she would have accomplished a whole lot more if she hadn't gotten roped into this relationship with a married man, mind you, and then married him the same year that his wife committed suicide, quote unquote. But let's see. The reason I really wanted to do Mary Shelley's soul contract is because of her past life. The numerology for that is 6517. So in her past life, Mary Shelley had a huge talent that warranted praise and recognition, and it's something that she obtained in this past life. It could have been a unique skill, it could have been beauty, but it was like natural. It was something she was just naturally good at, and it wasn't a result of self-development. This caused her to get a little bit prideful, and she took advantage of it, and she really went about life with minimal effort. She didn't have to try really hard or struggle. Things kind of just came to her. So this almost gives me like she was either born into royalty or she got married off to a royal and didn't have to do much and everything was just handed to her. How does this manifest in her incarnation back in 1797 when she was born? This manifests by a feeling of uniqueness that does not go away. She still kind of has remnants of this memory of being in a position of adoration. I think there's this sense that people owe her things and that she doesn't have to constantly work or develop herself in any way. In this life, however, that doesn't end up happening. And the universe kind of breaks all of these expectations of her very, very early on and quite harshly. We can kind of see that in the fallout that she had with her father when she decided to marry Percy. And in doing this cutting off these expectations, the lesson there for her is to kind of learn that success needs to be earned and that her intention, her behavior when she achieves success is very important. She has to still respect others. She still has to appreciate other people's help, other people's favors, other people's finances. So now in this incarnation, in the incarnation she had in 1797, she learned that every step that she has to take will have to be at the cost of her hard work. She likely saw in this incarnation situations where others could reach things relatively easily, quite easily, in the same profession, in the same workspace, and she would have to try twice as hard to reach that same kind of pinnacle. And there's kind of a warning attributed to this karmic debt, where if she gets something undeservedly again without putting in the work, without doing the self-development, then it's going to kind of dissipate. It's going to fall apart in her hands. So this is a very serious karmic debt, and one that I'm not loving for Mary Shelley. But as we get into her chart, and as we have seen from Percy's chart, there's a lot more to the story between them than we know. Now, to paint a picture of who Mary Shelley was, we have to take a look at her approach to life. And when I read this, I'm like, it feels like she's competing with the other wife, the first wife. She feels like she must have felt like she needed to be better than her. Do we need to take a look at Percy's first wife for a second? Because she's kind of coming into our peripheral Was Mary Shelley trying to be better than Percy's first wife, Harriet, because she didn't want to end up like her? Okay, this is not looking good for Percy, because now I'm looking at Harriet Westbrook. She was born in 1795, so she's 3 years younger than Percy. She was the daughter of an owner of a very popular and profitable coffee house and tavern in Mayfair, London. Her father, John Westbrook, wanted his children to move up in the world, so he enrolled Harriet in a boarding school in Clapham. It was there that she became a friend of 12-year-old Helen Shelley, the younger sister of Percy Bysshe. Percy met 15-year-old Harriet after Oxford University sent him down in January of 1811 for expressing publicly in a pamphlet his atheist views. Sounds like somebody that is trying to force their views and opinions on others, right? By August 26th, he and Harriet had eloped and were on their way to Scotland to be married. At only 16, turns out, after weeks of meeting Mary, it was evident that Percy was just enamored with Mary, and Harriet was all up in arms about this because at this point she was pregnant with her second child and she was the mother of a 1-year-old daughter. So, being pregnant and feeling abandoned and betrayed, Harriet returned to her father's house and apparently suffered immeasurably under the public's scrutiny. There's not a lot of details about Harriet's life for the next 2 years. Her son was born in November of 1814, and she stayed at her family home until suddenly disappearing in 1816. She left her children, left her parents, just suddenly disappeared, and in the early morning of December 10th, 1816, an elderly man was making his way through Hyde Park when he saw something floating in the water of the Serpentine. It was the body of a young woman. He told authorities that it appeared as though she had been in the lake for some days. Wow. There was no obvious signs of violence, and the natural conclusion reached was that the poor girl had taken her own life. At that time, drowning in the Serpentine was one of the most common means of suicide in London. But there are several facts about this story which make it one of the most engaging mysteries. 1, she was missing for almost a month. 2, during that time she had been living under another name, Harriet Smith. And apparently Percy Shelley had a very powerful and connected father named Sir Timothy. All right, I feel like I'm going to source this. I'm getting this from jennybondbooks.com. So apparently Harriet was heavily pregnant again. So this is what, her third kid, heavily pregnant again when she was found drowned, when she had committed suicide, quote unquote. It is possible that Shelley was the father. There's a record of both of them meeting in London around the time of the child's conception. Now, here's where it gets really messed up. Okay, I wanted this to be a love story so bad. I wanted this to be like, oh, like they loved each other so much and Mary had his heart in a silk thing. No. Percy is the worst, okay? Because 6 days after Harriet's body was discovered, Percy Shelley wrote a letter to Mary, absolving himself of all blame, and in fact, saying that he believes Harriet descended the steps of prostitution and lived with somebody by the last name of Smith who had deserted her, and that's why she committed suicide. And funnily enough, ironically enough, there is no evidence to support these claims. Harriet is increasingly looking like the victim of all of this because apparently it was like widely known that Percy Shelley had abandoned Harriet, and in order to protect his own daughter's reputation, Mary Shelley's father, William Godwin, started to spread rumors about Harriet, that she was unfaithful to Shelley before he had even abandoned her. Oh, he was talking crap about her. He was saying that she had low social standing, lack of intelligence, and even the possibility that she was an alcoholic. Oh gosh. Okay, maybe we should be doing an episode on Harriet instead, because she is definitely a woman scorned in all of this. This is absolutely insane. How did I manage to stumble upon this as I'm actively trying to talk about Mary Shelley? Okay. Apparently, biographers and historians have speculated for centuries about how Harriet Shelley died. Some even suggested that it was Mary Shelley's dad, William Godwin, that had her killed because it was Harriet that stood in the way of Mary marrying Percy and becoming an honest woman. They theorize specifically that it was her dad, Mary's dad, because he had a diary. He kept a diary where he noted Harriet's death on November 9th. But the date of her death wasn't known until 3 weeks later when her body was found. Jesus Christ. Should we go back to Mary Shelley's soul contract? Because I cannot with this. Maybe I need to do part 2. Leave me a comment asking me for a part 2 if you guys want to touch on Harriet Shelley's soul contract. Let me see if they have the date of her birth, because this is insane, guys. This is insane. And I don't like the looks of it. But let's go back to Mary Shelley's soul contract, because I feel like by the time I'm done this episode, my opinion of her is going to dwindle down to nothing, because this is very bad. We have a date of birth for Harriet Westbrook, and if you guys want me to look into her soul contract and see what it says about her incarnation and see if it mentions being betrayed by her husband or having suicidal tendencies or depression, we can do that. We can do that. We can look into that, but we're going to get back to Mary Shelley. Why did I start looking up Harriet in the first place? Because it said that Mary Shelley was kind of competing with somebody. She was always trying to be better than somebody else, maybe have more than somebody else, or maybe be smarter than somebody else. This kind of approach to life attracts situations where a person cannot really showcase their skill or talent, and thus leading to them being rejected or not being noticed. Signs this is playing out: low self-esteem, insecurity, imposter syndrome, lack of self-confidence, rejection of criticism, arrogance, proving their superiority by devaluing others, trend follower, envy of others' success, desire for quick success, difficulties in fulfillment, and the habit of judging a book by its cover. Mary Shelley's destiny in this incarnation, what she was desperately trying to do, is to connect to her spirituality and to learn to be free from all material attachments. That seems to be a very heavy focus for her in this incarnation. The attachment to the material, the attachment to finances, and needing to be above other people financially or in class or in society, which isn't that uncommon, especially for that time period. It was all about class, right? Even we just read that Mary Shelley's dad was talking crap about Harriet, saying that she's lower class, she lacks intelligence. So this was something that was very, very common. Some of the subconscious programs she has running are pretty interesting. She incarnated with the task of bringing people together. Frankenstein definitely did that. Frankenstein essentially created his own genre and started forming what is now considered sci-fi, right? So she has the high spiritual unification mission, which is an ability to attract people with the same ideas, with communication, with charisma, and she definitely did that as a writer. The next subconscious program we see in her chart is one of devaluing things, not appreciating them when it's out of alignment. When it's in alignment, this person appreciates every day, is very grateful, has very strong family connections, good friends, and is able to kind of see the light at the end of the tunnel, make the most out of every day. When it's operating from misalignment, we see a better picture of Mary Shelley's childhood. And I'm getting her stepmother for this because it says that there was moments where she was bullied, where the things that she did would be taken away from her. Other people would take credit for it. And Mary was constantly made to doubt her own significance, her own place in this world. This kind of manifests as people not appreciating family. Mary leaving her family and marrying Percy and straining that relationship with her father after what seems like him trying really hard to maintain her reputation checks out with this part of her soul contract. And we see this further kind of agitated by her self-destruction program. She has a program called self-destruction, and when it's operating in alignment, this person has all of the qualities, all the skills, talents, opportunities available that they would need to live a successful and happy life. They easily make decisions. They're ready to make changes, to develop themselves, to get out of their comfort zone and know how to risk things in order to get what they want. Self-destruction comes with the gift of being a phoenix. When you are in alignment, you are able to be reborn from literal ashes and start everything over from scratch. But when it's operating out of alignment, this person has a tendency of throwing caution to the wind and really not appreciating what they have in their life and playing around with it, taking various risks, taking dangerous risks, making risky choices that lead to self-sabotage. Mary Shelley, like Percy, has both the Hiding the Truth program and the Silence program. So clearly something in this incarnation was being hidden. Something was being kept from public knowledge. There's also a lot of self-sacrifice in her soul contract. There are 2 or 3 programs she has that specifically have this trait of being very self-sacrificial. And this may be why Percy was so attracted to Harriet and then so attracted to Mary, because when you're essentially pubescent, 15 years old, right, and you're a 20-year-old man, you can easily convince people that are not legally adults yet to step up to the cause of supporting you, to step up to the cause of helping you achieve your dreams. So I really, really wonder if Mary Shelley reincarnated, if she kind of had to face that karma for the fact that she didn't do as much as she could have. She, it seems, kind of put her life on hold, especially after the death of Percy, to promote his work, to promote his poetry. I want to look up his poetry. I'm going to look up his poetry after this, and I'm going to see if it's even half good. I'm sorry, I'm like really mad at him. I'm going all over the place with these soul contracts, I know, but can I just also say that Percy also has the bragging program and the not taking things seriously program. This is a person that he was an F-boy before F-boys were a thing. I mean, I feel like F-boys were always a thing, but that is F-boy energy. This is somebody that lacks empathy to the nth degree. They think that it's okay to joke at other people's expense. They don't understand when it's appropriate to joke and when it's not appropriate to joke. And the joke program that we're talking about is something that I see very often in narcissists. It's one of the programs I'm on the lookout for when it comes to whether somebody has narcissistic qualities. So going to add that there. We're going to add that there. We're going to leave that there. And we're going to go back to Mary Shelley's soul contract because oh man, I'm very, very sad for her because of all of the missed opportunities, all of the missed potential that we have just laying here in her soul contract. had it not been for her marriage to Percy and kind of sacrificing herself and her career for him. I think that I'm kind of wondering where this went wrong, because it seemed like she was the daughter of a feminist. Like, why would she go and kind of sacrifice her life's work, sacrifice her mission to promote somebody else's, especially somebody that was just not a good person? And I think that she thought she was doing the right thing because it was out of love. It was out of how much love she had for this Shelley guy. Oh my God. Okay, hold on. Percy wrote Ozymandias. Do you guys know that poem? I learned that poem, like I memorized that poem in my Christian private school, the 2 years that I went there. We learned it there, so I hated it. I always hated it because I'm like, what's the deeper meaning? What is he talking about? I don't understand. And I think we just figured it out. We just figured it out. And I say this I'm trying to say this as respectfully as possible because, also aware of my own karmic imprint. I don't think it talks about anything. I think Shelley was trying so hard to be deep, and he couldn't. He couldn't. Would it be funny if I closed this episode with his poem? I don't think so. I thought about it for a second. No, I don't think so. It sounds really pretty. It sounds really artsy, really wordy, but I don't think it means anything. I think this is one of those people. Oh my God, what's the word for when somebody is trying really hard to sound sophisticated, to sound intellectual? So this is the person that uses a thesaurus to find really complicated words and use them in daily conversation in order to sound smart. I'm gonna do a deep dive into Mary Shelley's work after this and into Percy Bysshe. I hope to God it's Bysshe. Shelley and just see what they're about. But I thought it was important to note that the underlying message of Frankenstein was a warning about the dangers of unchecked ambition. I think that's a little reference to Percy, and the ethical responsibilities that come with scientific discovery and creation. It explores how the obsessive pursuit of knowledge, again, we talked about Percy being obsessive, right? The novel also highlights themes of prejudice, the corrupting nature of revenge, and the essential need for love, the essential human need for love and acceptance. So, if that isn't a cry for help from Mary Shelley, I don't know what is. Should I end this by saying, Percy was a Leo man? Because I feel like I could have just skipped the entire soul contract and just said, Percy was a Leo. And that would have been, you guys would have known what I meant. Not much else to say. All right, I'm a little devastated at looking at Mary Shelley's contract. I thought that we were going to go into this inspirational, and it quickly turned into tragedy, and then quickly turned into, oh dear Lord, somebody murdered poor Harriet. But thank you guys so much for going on this journey with me. You joined me in this unraveling and this roller coaster of a ride. That is all I have for you guys about Mary Shelley, about Percy. I don't even want to look at his contract anymore. I'm still so mad at him. I do want to see what we can get from Harriet's soul contract, if that is something that you guys would be interested. If not, I'm going to look into it myself, because that poor woman, talk about a woman scorned. She was abandoned. Then she was gossiped about. Then she likely got impregnated by her husband a third time, and he abandoned her again to be with Mary. I don't like this. I don't like Percy. I don't like the looks of this. I feel like Harriet deserved better. I feel like Mary could have done better, but she was kind of entrapped into this obsessive personality that Percy has. And I think that was his charm. That was how he charmed them. He knows how to speak, right? He has the gift of speech. He knows how to say the right things. He has a way with words. And I think at some point, Mary must have realized that this obsession that he has isn't necessarily with her. It's not necessarily with anybody but himself and his own ambitions. So that is what we are going to close with. I did want to say, and I feel really bad for this because I promised one of you guys that I would be making a promo code soon specifically for my podcast listeners. So I wanted to put it out here and just give it as a thank you for listening. If you guys wanted to check in and get your own soul contract done, or any of the other services that I provide, I am going to be doing a 20% off promo code. The promo code is SPOOKY. I am going to get off this recording and go create it right now for you guys so you can use it when this episode airs. Again, thank you for listening. Thank you for your support, for your orders. Follow me on Instagram at the Soul Ecosystem to also be up to date on any sales, but right now the 20% off is going to be just for you guys, for you listeners. The Spooky promo code is going to be available only on my Etsy shop, The Soul Ecosystem, and you guys are going to be able to use it for any of the offerings listed there. Thank you so much. Have a wonderfully fun and spooky Halloween, and I will see you guys next Friday.